So I took a standard piece of mathematics homework about percentages and I put them through uh, AI chatbot. And when I saw this, I'm like, oh my God, what is this happening? What have we done here? Right? What is it we've created? If this is how our students are going to do their work, their classwork or their homework, then what happens to their learning? What about the academic integrity, right? Are we looking at a scenario in a very near future where we have children just lazing around, watching TV, playing games, and they have this automaton almost like a automatic robot vacuum, and it's just going around and doing their work for them. What's the other approach that we can possibly deploy? So I went back to actually that the percentage problem, and I was looking into the output a little bit more closely. So I showed you the Bing out. No, sorry, showed you the Google Bard's output. I had put the same image and I put it on Google on Microsoft Bing, and Microsoft Bing came up with some responses as well. And when I looked at it, I just glanced through that. It seemed like it had given an answer for all the problems, all six problems in the sheet. But then I started to look a little bit closely into what really has happened here, right? And then I found that actually Bing was taking more of a maybe a coaching kind of an approach. It's telling that here is a way you solve the problem, but it didn't really solve the same problem. So, for example, the first problem is a 18 girls in a class of 30. It is doing a percentage here. It's doing something around 12 in a class of 20. I think it comes up with similar answer, but it's doing a little bit of a different percentage. So if a student just copied the work as is, it will not be right. But look at the next problem, the Skittles problem. We're asking, the question asks for 12 red in a box in a packet of 40, and Bing solved a problem which is 9 out of 18 and comes up with a 50%, which is a wrong answer, by the way. So at a glance, it seemed like it did produce an answer or a series of answers, but these are not really, it hasn't solved the exact problem that was being asked for. So there is some hope, isn't it? And with that hope, then I said, oh, you know what? Let's look at some other kinds of problems. Okay, so here is another image. Again, it's an image I took and I put it through the chatbots. And so before we get in there, I want you to take a quick look at it, maybe a couple of seconds to see. Let's look at question number 14 to see what do you think happens with that question. What's the answer to that question? All right, so I came up I came up with an answer, 14 and 15, because this is a sequence, and it's going 2 1 2 1. So you see 3 to 5, it's 2 increasing by 2, and then it increases by 1, then it increases by 2 again, then increase by 1. So it's a increasing by 2 and then increasing by 1. That pattern continues on. And so after 12, it will be increased by 2, which is 14, and then increased by 1, so that's 15. So that's the answer to this question. Now I basically put this image into the chat engines, okay? So the answer, this is an answer coming from Bard, Google's Bard. So just so as you know, I could not input an image to Chat GPT. The current version of GPT 3.5 does not allow for image inputs. I believe you can input images in the paid version of Chat GPT. They're calling it GPT Plus. But Bard and Bing allowed for me to upload images for free. So this is on Google Bard, and it comes up with something. It comes up with an answer which is 1314, and it has figured out it's a sequence. So it did figure out it's a sequence problem, but somehow the sequence it talks about is 231. So the pattern it has figured out is something wrong. I asked it to clarify, what does it really mean? It's clarifying something, but then as it's clarifying, it comes up with another answer. So see, first it says the answer is 13, 14, but then as it's solving it, it comes up with answers are 14 and 16. So I think the AI in this situation is totally confused. It has absolutely no clue what it's doing anymore. So I just left it at that. And let's look at the next problem then. And again, let's take a few seconds just to look at what's a possible solution for this one. Okay, so I came up with this being a sequence when it increasing 3 1 1. So it increases by 3, then increases by 1, and then by 1 again, and then 3 1 1. So that's the way the pattern is going. So the next two numbers in that sequence will be 21 increases by 3, which is 24, and then increases by 1, which is 25. So the answer is D. Now, again, I put this through the Google Bard, and it came up with an answer which is different. It came up with 22, 23. It did detect the pattern. It detected that it's a sequence and it said it's a 3 1 1 3 1 1 sequence, but somewhere it kind of gets messed up towards the end. And then again, I asked it for some explanation. It explains, it begins by saying the answer is 20 to 23. But in that explanation, as it keeps going, it comes up with a different answer, 23 24. So again, AI is lost. Don't know what it's doing exactly. Um, and I actually pointed out to Bard saying that both of your answers are incorrect. Please check. And again, it's kind of checking and figuring out something. It says, I apologize for my previous error. I'm still under development, learning new things. I'll try my best. So, anyhow, at the end of the day, AI got confused with all this stuff and it's kind of creating answers, whatever it thinks is right, but they're indeed not right. So, the question becomes for students is, if these questions are incorrect, then how could they figure out, what's the right answer? So the next thing I did was instead of giving it a picture, I decided to give it the text. It's exactly the same text as you see on question number 14. So just a sequence of numbers with parentheses in the end. And to see, what do the chatbots figure out that this question really is? And in this case, again, Bart came up thinking it is a sequence, but it comes up with a totally different sequence. What it has figured out is wrong. So again, it comes up with wrong answers. The next question, the next time what we did was actually use words. So you can look at the prompt. The prompt says using the sequence below, what are the next two numbers? And it's a much clearer prompt. And now we get the right answer. And I think this answer, the correct answer came from ChatGPT because we were not able to input images there, but once we input the text there, it gave the right answer. So for a child to get to the right answer, they would probably need to at least understand that this was a sequence and to ask the question saying it's a sequence, now give the next set of answers, numbers to use. So what happens is if you look at the cognitive complexity, right? When we looked at the percentage problem, it was a very simple problem. Given X and Y, find a percentage, right? So that was all about applying a known formula. You did not need to even know that what the formula is and how it works. All you need to know was that you do X divided by Y to come up with the percentage and multiply it by 100 to come up with the percentage. So it was a simpler problem with a low cognitive demand on the kids. The other question, which we just looked at, is a sequence problem, right? It involves finding a pattern. So first we had to figure out a pattern that's a sequence, and that sequence is increasing 2 1 or 3 1 1. There was no explicit formula. It had to be figured out. So it required some level of reasoning and creativity to figure out how the numbers were related and the logic that would be used to continue the sequence. So in this case, it's a lot more involved in terms of cognition and cognitive demand. So it's a high cognitive demand kind of a problem. So what that's telling us is that you are seeing situation, at least for right now. Again, AI is improving and it's becoming uh, more and more better as we go along. But at this point in time, at least based on what we are seeing, there are some challenges when it comes to some of the high cognitive requirement problems that might be thrown at AI.